what made you guys think about like having this moment with us three together?
To have this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, just to have a record of our conversations. The intro part says this is bed talks, and this is like whatever topics we want to talk about, and also to simulate us while we're on long distance before we meet again in April. And
Mm-hmm.
what was the topic last time, Dario? Episode 1 was
It was about long distance relationship, like the myths behind it, and can we say about it, like our personal opinion, or the struggles or the strategies to cope with it.
Yeah, and then we thought of like, oh, maybe we can invite friends, and so I think you and someone else was, for me, I think were the best fit for podcast to start with, and then Dario was also thinking for specific friends to invite in the future, and so I'm like, oh, Dallah just texted me. Why not? We ask her. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that you think that I'm one of the best fit for this. I'm not being, false, humble, inauthentic one, but I'm really actually humbled because I feel like it's such an honor for anyone, even though we take this for granted, but there's just really an amazing space for people, even in friendship, when you're being vulnerable and you share this deep, intimate stuff that you don't usually talk about it every day. That's what makes it special, because not everyone is intentional to dig deeper on how you think about things, your experiences, and what it means for you, and what it means when you hear it from other people. So, yeah. Thank you.
And yeah, I think it's also to return the favor, because you had your ADHD moment of passion projects before too.
Oh no, that definitely, and I appreciate you jumping into my ADHD wagon of like, how about let's talk about this thing, because like there's just like this burst of like of thoughts, of emotions that you want to articulate, and you need someone that doesn't necessarily have the same experience but have their own thoughts about it. So yeah.
I think friendship is, you have a lot of things to say and experience with different kinds of friendship, especially your experience in Philippines, Bangkok, and now in Europe. Maybe curiosity on like different friendship dynamics as well.
To me, it's like a cultural journey too, because I think like it made me think what you said, Dallah, about having a safe space to like share and connect on a deep level. And I think for like at least what I understood from my interaction with Filipinos is like having already a word that expresses the concept of holding something within you because you're not willing to share because it might hurt or it might be not convenient, and it's like tampo. And learning that word to me is like opening a whole world. And when that applies to such a topic like friendship, it seems such a cultural shock to me. Like, why should a person hold themselves back while speaking about friendship? But then, like, especially with me and Gideon, like we had personal experiences about what the toll that is taken by friendship, especially when you're in a relationship. So I wondered, like, and I wanted really to ask you, how did the two worlds of friendships and relationship were like interfering with each other or overlapping or like interacting with each other? I'm very curious about that.
Oh yeah, I think that is a very relevant question. I've been in a position wherein I have come into terms that I'm not really the type of person who have like kind of friendship that we have to talk every day. And even when I was like growing up, because I kept on moving from one town to another, I have like 6 schools growing up. And so it made me adapt to like being nice, being friendly, but being friendly and building friendship are 2 different things. Being friendly might be a 1 step closer to building a friendship, but it's not the totality of it. I've always had boyfriends and girlfriends and, and it always, when you are in an insecure relationship, that would really cause a very big problem. Insecure in a way that your partner is not that matured enough that, friendship between an opposite sex could foster as a platonic as it can be. That's the start where I got isolated because I gave in to his idea of like, no, you shouldn't go with it. No, you shouldn't talk to this guy. I can trust you, but I don't trust that person, that kind of argument. And just for me, because I grew up in a situation where I could just like, okay, I don't really want argument. That's why I'm always an escapist with the whole thing and other friendship. Oh my God, don't record just like reduct this one. Because I feel like this is super comfortable.
With your
that
former
I just
friend,
don't hide.
are you still considered as a friend or?
Yeah, no. I mean, like, no. I mean, like, if there's trouble, instead of me confronting the person, because I don't trust the person well enough, that person would accept it. That's my problem, right? Not that the other person. So I tend to, okay, maybe just drift away and then move on to another one, because like endless possibilities of me, of me building friendship with another people, and it's not my loss anyways. I'm almost 40, and then what else? Like I don't want to deal with it. But the point is, there comes to a point that you really get, because like, remember, the situation keeps on coming back up until, in one form or another, up until you get head on with it. So it's not, oh my God, why am I always, like, people who are this are attracted to me? No, they're not attracted to you. You are still doing the same thing all over again in a different person, in a different situation, but the same value that you need to face up. So going back, I would just always like, okay, for peace, so that we don't fight, I'm gonna isolate myself and not talk to those other people, so that my main relationship, because I felt like before, the kind of thinking for Filipinos, if your partner is your life, there's no A or B. It's a whole letters of each other with that person. So that was super unhealthy. And it took me so much like experience of pain, and because you didn't know that you would also adapt the kind of what you're tolerated from your partner. Meaning when I have a secure relationship, meaning my partner is like friendly to other women and they have girlfriends and they talk to them, I feel, what do you call that? I feel threatened. I feel like, oh my God, I'm becoming the kind of person that I did not want, because I have adapted that kind of thing that, you know what, you shouldn't talk to them, because what will happen? It's out of fear and insecurity rather than fostering trust and love. So I think that's my first point into that. Wrapping it up, it's about like, how do you draw the line? It depends on like the kind of security and trust that you have to yourself first, and then how you and your partner share that kind of value to your relationship.
You're just offering us a free therapy session. Amazing, like jaw dropping, really. And this is not to humble you or anything. It's beautiful indeed. No, but when you were explaining this journey of yours and your boyfriend too, I was trying to put myself into the shoes of the partner that feels this trust issue, right? So you quoted the experience of pain, and experiencing pain for a human being and us. I think it's the three of us escapists. It's hard to endure. Like, we don't want to go through pain for how helpful it might be to grow and to become new people. And also, like, it's about identity shift. So you quoted like, oh, I went to multiple schools. I grew up becoming the pleasant person that wants to kind of please you so that I can conquer your attention and establish friendship. So I wonder, like, and genuinely, I'm curious, like, what has been your journey to establish this trust between you and your partner, like expanding the bubble of the relationship in which you have this cultural pressure of having the partner as your life, but then there is a whole world orbiting around you that is piercing this bubble at all times, and we eventually don't want that to harm the integrity of the bubble, but we just want the bubble to expand.
It really takes a lot of authenticity to yourself and knowing what you are. Because like for us, the escape is the one who's like pleasant to everyone. It's super hard to establish an identity of yourself when you're always like a chameleon, right? So when it comes to relationship, what I found out is like the more I put like not, do not get me wrong, boundary is very important, but at the same time, I have to know, like, I have to be in a relationship wherein your relationship is like, you know, was it the parable of the sand? Like, you take the sand, and the more you cling to it, the more it escapes your hand. But if you just put it there and it fate and everything just goes it, like, it just like support whatever you are in your life, the sand would just go there. But if the wind would like sweep away from the sand, it's okay because you let the sand be the sand. Going back to your question, like not during the bubble or everything, the first thing really is finding out who you are before you relate to other people. Because the tendency of me as a chameleon, I would just like, oh, you like red? Yes, I love red. Remember the red and the red and the red and the red? You know, like just trying to find a connection, and it's super feels inauthentic and doing it all the time. And then I meet these wonderful people in my life who can be just true to themselves. And I felt at first, I felt repelled because how are you so true to yourself? Like I am repelled by it because I don't have the courage to do that. But then the more I try to like see these people being true to themselves and seeing how other people can love them for who they are. I mean, I am also special, not special away, like, you know, like very narcissistic, but like I could be loved as well, even though I am not the same like the other people. I can be loved as well, even though I don't like egg yolk and you like egg yolk. I don't have to eat egg yolk as well, you know, like, but I can be loved because you are an amalgamation and a multitude of all these events and people and yourself. And with all these things, you build something for yourself. I don't know if I answered your question well because I couldn't fully get deeper into the relationship right away without dealing the whole identity and having that secure foundation of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really insightful, and I'm really grateful that Gideon came up with this conversation because the topic is really intriguing me, and now I want to let him embark in the conversation too, like in an active way, because like you quoted the fact that it's all about like this feeling of security, like in your identity. When you notice that someone has strong boundaries and they're true to themselves, that's on one hand a source of attraction, but then it's like your end goal. So it arouses like jealousy. So you're kind of jealous of being like that. And I think Gideon is really advanced in this sense because he's like very, he went through a journey in which he really grasped what matters to him. And I think I'm on one hand inspired by his journey, on the other a bit like intimidated because it's like, oh, you have this castle like that is safeguarding your identity, and how do I breach that? So I found some ways to breach into the Gideon's castle, like mostly physically. So far, the psychological part is still under the process, but I'm curious to hear more about the journey of the building of the castle of Gideon. Like, what were the moments that are the most relevant to your journey of like?
I could relate to Dallah's experience with like moving a lot. My idea of friendship is also wasn't developed similar to most or maybe a lot of people, because even like the idea of best friend I think it's still foreign for me, because like when people have like best friends from like, oh, from high school, from grade school, I'm like, oh, I moved every grade from grade 1 to university, and even university I moved multiple universities too, while people have their close friends, their neighbors, their best friends. At the later part, I'm like, oh, I'm a bit jealous that people have those people to call them as best friends or like close friends. So like I think like the friends that I have right now are like I hope they're not superficial anymore. I think they were built from experiences from like after the bigger chapters of my life. So I think I could say that these are the good friends. In terms of relationship and identity, I struggle with the cultural identity plus having an international relationship. I don't know how to blend or to bridge maybe, or to clarify the boundary of like, is this a cultural thing or is this like I still need to develop my idea of like friendship and relationship. I think I'm still like, there's still some puddles and muds along those lines that I'm still figuring out how to distinguish. I'm aspiring to have that mentality of like, oh, your partner is not your whole world, but yeah, I aspire to be calm or accepting of that. But yeah, I think that's one of my journey right now.
Can I just add something about you said like cultural thing? So just a little bit of a background. I was in a very long term relationship in the Philippines before I moved to Thailand, and that guy, he's a third culture kid. He has so much identity crisis in him because he looks like a Filipino, but he's not Filipino. He grew up in Canada and he got all this racist thing. And when he moved back to the Philippines, he can never be fully Filipino because he's Canadian as fuck, you know? And then I was in a relationship with him. And then I felt like, we just share, easier said than that. We just share the same values. As long as we love each other, we can just go through everything. And then his parents, like, on hindsight, I didn't understand it. But now that I have matured and I have met a lot of people, the first thing they said is like, the biggest hurdle that you will have in your relationship is the cultural difference. I'm like, no, I can speak English, duh. But it's more than the language. It's the whole cultural nuance of how you say things. Like, for example, you said about the tampo. Tampo is such a very unique. There are lots of like Filipino words that are very unique because they identify this little nuance of what you feel and how you feel it. That only you could understand how it is when you understand the tampo. Ah, it's the tampo. You don't even have to explain it. But once you said that the person has a tampo with you, huh? How come? And like those layers, if I'm a Filipino, I could understand it right away. But if you're from here, like for example, I'm just like quiet because like I stand like the first hurdle that I had when I went to Europe is like, we're not touristy, but like when I tell you like I wanted to see the atomium, and then you tell me why do you have to see the atomium? Instead of like, if it's not amazing to you, then fine. But I just wanted to see it because I've never seen it. And then I would keep quiet. And then he couldn't understand. He's like, upset is not even tampo. It's a whole different layers, you know? So yeah, so it's really, I would commend you from saying that you are still trying to figure out about trying to identify the nuances between the relationship and the cultural aspect of it, because it will take some time. You need to base hurdles together, get to know each other. I don't think like this is not an overnight thing that I feel secure in my relationship. It took us 5 years. It took us a second time around to build this relationship and for me to figure out who I wanted to be and what kind of person that I want to be, because I wasn't proud of some phases in my life, but I needed to experience those for me to realize, you know what, he was right. It's just my pride and ego that got along the way. But you wouldn't know. You would only, sometimes people would just act on the kind of knowledge that they have at the moment, so yeah, I commend you for that, Gideon, for like saying that one.
Yeah, and also like because I didn't have a model or like people that I can say like, oh, it could work this way like successfully. It's rare in the Philippines to see that. I think with the environment that I have, that's why it's a struggle.
I love how everyone quoted like I brought up the bubble, like you brought nuance like as one of the keywords of your speech, like Dallah, and in the case of Gideon, there was a lot of uncertainty like behind and molding. So the nickname that I used for Gideon is Ditto. So it's like the Pokemon that molds and adapts. So it's like so fun that each of us has this feeling that to deal with being vulnerable and to building identity, you really need to take care. So you need to be gentle. You need to be kind. You need to protect. And these attitude, Gideon always tells me, oh, try to give yourself grace, try to give ourselves grace. And you quoting the time and mind space that is needed to process like cultural differences and to establish the roots of relationship in a strong way. I think it's really comforting to me, like in the first place, but I think also like for people who might listen to this. And actually, I think it's the most powerful tool that we have to keep on establishing relationships, being in a relationship. Like I was thinking what Gideon said is like, he's like, I wish that one day I can be like the world, like of my partner, because I really aspire to be the world and to live in this interconnected world, but the world is biodiverse. So like there are many living beings interacting, and there wouldn't be life if there weren't worms in the soil, like moving the particles of the ground. And it's so like evident to someone that is not triggered by it, that it's like, oh, rationality speaks, so please obey rationality, obey like the brain, and don't let get triggered by the irrationality of I aspire to be your world, and that's just me. But I think the way that at least I want to interact with this is really with kindness and trying to be gentle, because there is really no alternative. And I think our conversation is a proof of it. Like there is no other way, because the tendency for people who don't know, and maybe Dallah, you don't, like Dario's nickname can be the dictator too, is like, oh, rationality can rule the world. Like whenever there is like a truth that is undoubtable, it's crystal clear. What's your point of undermining that with fear, with judgment, with cultural differences? What's cultural differences? How can they stand against what's commonly supported by science or knowledge or whatever? But I think the point that I'm always missing, and I'm really falling into this trap many times, is that when we're speaking about the human world, there is layers of complexity that you brought up, Dallah, and it's like the cultural differences and the journey of moving and adapting, and we can't neglect that. So I want to just say that really, I'm already receiving precious messages. It's all about time. It's all about care. It's all about gentle. And the attitude of Gideon as a teacher too, I think it's a learning process to me, because when he teaches the pupils like about art, he tries to do that with care, and that's the process that's the most effective for a certain concept to blossom and to really flourish into something powerful. And the same happens with the interconnection between friendship and relationship. Like if you manage to plant a seed in an effective way and you nurture it, then the fruits of it will be spontaneous. So after all these analyses, since I quoted the fruits, I'm really curious, like both to Gideon and Dallah, like what are the fruits that you think are already manifesting in your life, like in this connection between relationship and friendship? Like how are these two dimensions mutually enriching each other, if they are?
Wait, let me just go back what you said, like the neglect. Because the thing is, when we're very empowering and enriching to each other, there's a tendency that we neglect those other feelings that exist. Remember, we talk about kindness, and sometimes people, when they don't understand, when you show like a disagreement, they said that's anger. It's a negative emotion. I don't think anger, upset, and all those other emotions are negative at all. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. It's this, they have this interplay with each other that is very relevant for us to survive. So it's important, you said, like we shouldn't neglect all those other feelings, even if we have this really empowering, enriching that. Remember what you said about grace, because that can be used as a weapon as well, that your partner cannot express himself well, especially if your partner is not that into that level of like articulating themselves well, and emotions goes first, right? So it's one thing that I have to tell myself, like Stan is an imperfect human being. I am an imperfect human being. Even though he knows what he needs to do, I cannot blame him when he's upset about something because I don't disagree with it. I don't agree with it. So the grace means allowing someone to express themselves freely without using that against them. I think that's the grace that I wanted to establish in the relationship and in my relationship with you. And that's, I think, the fruit that is manifesting, because when someone is upset with me, I don't take that against them. I'm like, I need to pause. And I think I've seen that when my best friend just like really burst out of nowhere, and it's not actually towards me, but a lot of things that are happening. But if it's me, the younger Dallah would just like, fucking hell, I don't deserve this. I'm already at a space of my life that I'm chill and in zen. So if you give that shit to me, bye, cut off right away. But so that was the younger Dallah. But the younger Dallah right now is like, give grace to yourself as well, to know that you've been hurt. You were disrespected as well. And give grace as well to that person, that when you tell this person about how you feel, there's another fruit that will bloom from it. And that's the trust that I wanted to embrace, but I'm still learning. And I'm still struggling. But there's the fruit, there's the seed. And the fruit will grow depending on how I take care of that seed, you know. Okay, that's my
That's your piece.
that's my thought about it.
I think mine is, I think seeds of seeing more perspectives of one is seeing other people's culture, and another one is understanding or finding kindness from other people's way of taking care of you, or maybe communication, which is different from how we were taught to communicate or to accept things. Third is, I saw a lot of reels about like, oh, you're choosing a partner that's just mirroring what you need to work on yourself. So I think appreciation of that whoever partner you find, they're always gonna mirror or show you, reflect to you what you need to work on, so that you don't make the same mistakes and you don't make the same habits and bad behaviors in the future, or to improve your life. Yeah, those seeds, I don't think they're bloomed as fruits yet. I think they're underway. And just like being kind to myself too. Accepting that these feelings are okay to feel.
Yeah, wow. It's like true recognition of the complexity of life. I think that's the mantra of today, because I was thinking before, here we're dealing with fundamental human interactions, and of course we cannot rationalize and reduce them just to few variables. Like what Dallah said is like, oh, let's embrace the full spectrum of emotions that are related to being a friend, to being a partner. And what Gideon said is like, oh, of course. So to learn about the full spectrum, let's be inspired by different people that are trying to embrace in different ways the emotions. So I think this is key to highlighting how important it is to interact with multiple people. Because if we want to be each other's world and we want this world to be big, it's a fundamental necessity to engage with people like Dallah, with people like that are your friends, my friends, Dallah's friends, so that we can be inspired on things that we are not familiar with. And that can be cultural reasons, life experiences, because I didn't change school 6 times in my life. So I don't know what it means to need to please each class partner just to be welcomed in an environment that might have been perceived as hostile. Or I don't know what it meant to move from Tacloban to Davao, like, because it's a whole different context and journey. You were perceived as the foreigner. So I think each of us can be inspired by the life experiences of the other. The really key is to say human expression, because, yeah, funny thing, both me and Gideon are falling into the judgmental like categorization of the test, the one that has the acronym with the 4 letters. Like I don't recall right now what's the name of that test, but funny indeed. Like
the MBTI one.
Say it again.
The
MBTI.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's one.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
correct.
personality types, right?
The personality test. And it's funny because like I'm here being inspired by, oh, I should embrace the complexity of humanness and just be exposed to all of this. But then I think what I am kind of failing, or that's kind of stopping or slowing down the growth process, it's the judgment that is labeling it immediately. So I feel like through your words that you're much more like gentle and kind to the expression of humanness, while to me there is a right or wrong that is very solid. It's like pillar solid. And that's my foundation, because I grew up knowing what was right and was wrong. And that's my scaffolding, like to have grown as at this size. But then we have ambitions of becoming each other's world. And so the scaffolding must fall to leave space for something bigger. And so being inspired, the partner is crucial, to let some of these fundamental pillars fall, because I think younger Dallah is still lingering there at some point. So the presence of the partner is like bringing that young Dallah back, and is like tickling her, or like trying to provoke her, so to see if the reaction is there. But then there is a journey of Dallah with friends, with the partner, with every interaction that she has in her life, to let go of that confining structure and really to thrive. I'm sticking to the metaphor of the seed that blossoms. Like, I'm imagining branches now extending, right, and having coverage, and creating a whole biosystem behind it, below it. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what each of our trees growing, which will create around them, because I think it will be curious. We quoted the game Spore with Gideon some time ago, and it was fun because I'm imagining these forms.
Dario, you were cut.
No, it's like life forms, spores. I was just quoting that. Let's see what biodiversity is showing us, like what our trees will look like in the future.
Yeah, when you talked about trees and like blossoming and the branches, just growing, I felt as well that we also need to be reminded of sometimes people go through different seasons, and sometimes we need to wilt so that for us to be able to recuperate and like, bloom again into a different form. But still, we know that you are this tree, but you will be changing along the seasons in your life. And what's important is like, you're deeply rooted to the kind of value that you want for yourself. As much as we are inspired to these changes and to these stories and like this resilience of other people in our lives, like what you said, I also appreciate that even at a young age, you have that thing about like yes or no. Because the problem with us chameleons is like, oh, we're inspired, and then my personality would shift to this kind of person because that is attractive to me at the moment, and then you lose yourself in the process of trying to which one is attractive at the moment, and that's the downside of like, even sorry, like I'm gonna like all these trends and fads and these cool people that you want to associate yourself with, but at the same time you see this. I have a tendency to like, I have to say this, I am very attracted to productive people because that is something that I lack, I have all this, yes, I have this idea, but then once it comes to like actually doing it, once I do it the first time and I feel like, okay, this doesn't really work for me, and I move from one thing to, which is, there's nothing wrong as well with that. Like, there are people like who thrives on trying things and it makes their whole personality. And that's why I think the gift that I'm embracing right now is wherever I'm put into, I have some input into it. It's also because of all these other things that I'm attracted with, going back. So I felt like when it comes to being with other people, yes, we get inspired from them, but we don't take much of ourselves to be shifted into that kind of attractiveness that we see to those people. And so, yeah, I appreciate as well that there should be, a balance of like knowing yes or no, and a balance of like, yes, maybe we can go through with this, So yeah.
Yeah, it's taking things with a grain of salt. It's not just accepting immediately. I think it's, I can see that with, just the other day I was giving my students ideas about how to take feedback. So whatever people say to you, you can say no to them. You don't need to accept everything and to follow them. So there should be a point of discernment too.
I'm curious, what's the season in which the tree of Gideon is now? Because I have my own idea, but I want him to go upfront with him.
My season, I think my season in Bangkok is kind of like wrapping up. I can feel that. And so I think this is preparation for the next chapter, whatever that might be. So, yeah. And
so now we're all curious, like, what this preparation look like to you. Like, is it a solo journey? Is it something that, is it about your own identity? Is it just about like circumstances? Because we have been speaking about how tough is to let go like of these scaffolding. So how are you doing it?
I think it touches most aspects of my life, like financially preparing, individual wise. I think knowing more about myself, my identity, what I like, what my goals are, solidifying that kind of sense, and also in terms of interpersonal, like with people, how I see friendship, how I balance relationships, with the nuance of like, oh, you can't expect everything from your partner, and how can I add value to other people too. And also, Dario, kind of forced me to explore my past too, like my parents, my family background. So it's also another journey that I'm kind of preparing to maybe approach or explore or have closure with or accept. So it's a whirlwind plus the Italian lessons. It's a fun mix of like stuff, and also you teaching me fitness, health is important. So it's really a big preparation.
Yeah, I love that you quoted like how our past is influencing like our present season, right? Because like we feel the need to change, we feel the need to adapt, to adjust because of our past influences. So we're starting from somewhere. So I'm curious because I think this is always a kind of a taboo topic. Like no one speaks about it, but like how your past is present nowadays, like how much, and I'm referring to both of you, because in my case, I want to break the taboo like right away because I think it's important. Like every action that I do today and every step that I take or every influence, it's really rooted in the past. So the journey that we are now on is rewriting the past, kind of living the life that we feel we are entitled to live, but letting go of a burden coming from the past. Or interpreting the past not anymore as just a burden, but something that is really is the soil for the roots to be there. So I wonder, because in my case, I said it out loud, the past sometimes really feels like a burden. So what's your experience with that? And how does it interact with your present?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. Is the past, when we talk about past, is such a very big
picture.
Yeah, big picture.
Big
and which kind of past do you really want to like, you want us to connect with in the future or the present and the future setting that we have?
Let's stick to the friendship relationship world. I think like our past way of interacting with friends and making friends is talking to nowadays.
That's a very good question, Dario. And I appreciate you from like wrapping and concluding things and adding your thoughts into it. But at the same time, you also have like good questions that could like dig us deeper into that relationship. And I would always go back to, I will never allow myself to be inauthentic just for me to be accepted. I think that's the biggest lesson I will always have to. Like, I have to give so much of myself from my past relationship and friendship that I felt like my value is attached to me giving something to people. And I didn't know that I was already running out. Like you cannot go to places with an empty fuel, right? Except if you have electric car. Tesla is the keynote. What I'm saying is like, there's also value actually in it when you can't also be like just true to yourself, because we live in a very complex world that the beauty in it is we could read, this is not for everyone, but when you have a lot of experience, you could get into like the whole, like you can read the room. Yes, I am myself, but at the same time, I can be kind as well. Even if the food is not too good, I wouldn't say to Gideon, is this how you cook? Gideon, that's what I'm saying. But mainly on like foundational values that I have in my life. If I see already that I'm being disrespected, I wouldn't stay in the situation anymore because I've stayed in a lot of situations where I'm being disrespected. How it is really true, how you treat yourself is how you also allow other people to treat you. So I'm giving this respect to myself, a lot of respect to myself, a lot of care to myself, that sometimes it's easier I get into the mode of like being protective to myself when I see my younger self. So whenever I'm faced in the situation, because like for us right now, we're more resilient, right? But would you allow a younger Dario, a younger Gideon to be treated like this? And I go into my mama lion mode, like my lioness mode of like, no, I will take care of you. I won't allow other people to treat you that way. So I think that's how I am giving this much like regards to protecting my core values. And how about you, Gideon?
I think I've always been over positive about relationships, regardless if they're good or not. So I'm always like, oh, I'm grateful. I'm so thankful. Like even if it didn't work or if it was bad, but I think I'm starting to see like, oh, it was really bad. Like you can't try to make it light of something that was not really good. I think it's to seeing things more realistically and more objective. And then right now, I think I'm being more aware of, I'd say it has become my detection. Like, is it good? Is it bad? I think maybe my compass in like approaching different situations. It's kind of exhausting because I think it's a lot of like rebuilding, unlearning, and learning new stuff. So at this point, especially that, oh, I wish I could have developed these like when I was younger, but at this point, while you're navigating through professional or new phases in your life, and you're still like I think delayed with developing those foundational stuff, it's exhausting. But at least I see I'm trying to be positive again, but yeah, at least I have those tools now somehow.
Yeah, I can feel from the words of everyone how tough it is just to give a warm hug to warm young versions of ourselves and telling them, oh, it's going to be all right because now I grew up and so now I have the emotional tools to cope with it. It's really the case. And on one hand, I think it's beautiful to know that we can have a motherly or fatherly experience even without being a real father or mother of a child because and it's something so natural and so human but also so uncomfortable because it goes against your instinct. You quoted that like you need to like kind of suspend your opinion, like stop for a moment and avoid the instinct to be unleashed, otherwise it's uncontrollable. So that's why it's so tough. And that's why it takes so much self-control and self-awareness to let this younger self speak to our present. Yeah, actually, I wish myself I can be more in control and more merciful to this younger version of myself because right now I think I am in a phase in which the prioritization of relationships in general, like my partner and friendships, is really taking a toll on me because it's like, oh, I want to protect my integrity. I want to protect my freedom. I want to have my own time. But then I'm neglecting the part in which my time is made sense of through other people. And I've been knowing this since forever, but I think we had kind of a similar journey, Dallah, in which you were realizing that, oh, I'm putting myself out there a lot, like all the time. So now it's the moment in which is okay also to indulge in self care. And really, this is something that Gideon is, I think it's doing right and is really inspirational in this sense because I think he's more advanced than me in detecting because that's what he does perfectly. Like he knows how to detect what is benefiting him, like in the moment, like what is beneficial to him and what instead is kind of harming him or threatening him. And he can discern. Then about action, of course, like the journey, we're all like having our struggles with it. But about discerning, I think I'm numbed as yet to distinguish what's really benefiting me or whatnot. So happy to be in this journey with my mahal. Yeah.
Can I add something to it? It's super. I feel this is a very enriching talk that we have, that I'm not even thinking if this is a podcast or anything. Like when you said like going out there, we put too much. One thing that I've also thought in relation to our past and the future self that we have right now is my agenda. What is my agenda when I go out and I see these people? And then I realize there's this longing of being accepted and having people to validate it. Right. So my agenda was like for this person to like me and tell me nice things about myself. And then, but it's not sustainable when you know for yourself that it's not you that they're admiring, but it's the kind of self that you want to project for you to be accepted. And it took so much like friendship breakup, disappointment to myself that I get to get all these bushes around me of that false pretense of this agenda. Because at first I tried to mask it, like I just want to be out there and meet these people and be inspired with them. No, I'm there because I want to be validated. I wanted to be acknowledged of my existence because I exist and I need other people to feed me all these things that I'm having a hard time believing for myself. And that boils down again to when I say being your authentic self. It's also because when I meet up with these other people going out and then they can just go home without having to drink or having not treating anyone, they're okay and they're happy and it's more sustainable, right? It's more sustainable when you are being authentic because you don't have to lie to yourself. You're not emotionally drained because these ideas just flows naturally. My relationship with Gideon, it's very natural. We don't hang out all the time in Bangkok, but whenever we sit down, I don't feel that it's an obligation. I feel like I'm in a safe space. I'm at home when I'm with Gideon. And that is the kind of friendship that I want to foster. Even with Stan. I know at the end of the day, when I go home, Stan is my home. Meaning, whatever happens to me, we've got into that relationship that the first one that we will call is each other. There's this thing about like this idea in my life. I grew up with just having a maternal figure in the family. But even if it's a maternal figure, men in the family will always be highly regarded. And there's just this idea that your partner should be a person that is stable, who can give you anything. And I'm in a relationship wherein we have to decide our finances together. He will not save me from my debts, or he will not treat my friends. He has that regards that you're a grown woman, you can afford it to yourself, and I will give you dignity because you can afford it yourself. But at the end of the day as well, there are moments wherein he could also be vulnerable, like, Baba, let's stop the car. I'm panicking at the moment. And then I feel like, okay, let's stop the car. And instead of like me, like doubting my partner, like, is he weak or something? We got into the space of like, I can be weak and we can figure it out together. It's not either way you save me or I save you. I think this is the biggest growth that I had with my relationship, that I won't be strong all the time. I won't be reasonable all the time, but we will figure it out together. And if you need to figure it out yourself, I will give you the time and the patience that you need to do so. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, Dallah. 5 years, right?
No, but it's more on just the 5 years as well, like being together. It's more on like the decision that I have to make, that I have to break this shell that is, always wrapping in my mind. Because I know it's not sustainable anymore when I say to you, like, yeah, I figured things out, So, no, I haven't figured things out yet. And I will try my best to figure things out. If I couldn't figure them out right away, then it's okay. I'll be patient. But at the same time, I also need to move, right? We can't say like, oh, I want to be thin, but then I'm eating chips and chocolates. We need, at the same time, as much as we want to be positive, we need to have that kind of discipline to ourselves and have that dignity and honor ourselves as well, to hold ourselves accountable.
I'm trying to imagine what kind of journey also Stan went through to be able to give you that safe space and understanding as well, while you're also doing that to him.
That's a good question. You could ask him when you guys visit us.
Yeah.
That would be interesting.
Because I know your history in Bangkok, and it wasn't like a rainbows and butterflies journey. It was also a roller coaster. I mean, like a full Jurassic Park, actually. But I'm just happy where you are right now, though.
Thank you so much. It means a lot when your friends actually root for your success and you feel. I just really what I appreciate a lot about this friendship is like I really feel that burning authenticity we have for each other. That I am rooting for you and wherever you're in life. I never heard you or any hint like you're being sarcastic on how you deal with me or anything. Even if there's just Gideon and I have minimal interaction when we were in Bangkok, but it's always coming from a safe space. I feel, and maybe it's a different dynamic of what I had with our other friends. So
No, I think because we
so,
share. No, I think we talked about having like sharing the same, maybe a bit of family dynamics of like being maybe breadwinners, and like we have the same like responsibilities and goals as well. So I think that kind of helped keep the connections.
yeah, we were trauma bonding. Sometimes it's the whole foundation of all other things relating to those traumatic experiences in our lives, but not having that define us, So
Yeah, Gideon is always reminding me of how important it is also to deal with basic needs and no need to dig deep or fly high all the time. Like the lightheartedness that comes with dealing with these day-to-day reflections that are really meaningful and are really shedding a light on our life as humans. Cannot like take away the lightheartedness that should be associated to that. So I think with this conversation, we kind of proved to all of us that there shouldn't be shame or taboos speaking about what we went through and the journeys that are the hardships that are featuring our day-to-day lives. But what I can say is that I'm really proud, at least, of the way that you're capable of expressing yourself and being at ease with who you are, because embracing yourself in the moment, like in the present life as you are, is really the most powerful thing. So, of course, now in perfect Dario style, I'm going to use this for my favor. And so I'm saying, oh my gosh, guys, I'm starving, I'm exhausted, so I'm going to get my dinner. But I'm very, very happy and thankful to have had this conversation with you, and I kind of have to have more episodes in which we dive deep into different topics. Thanks a lot.
In Belgium or in Italy?
I think since we're comfortable with being international and uncomfortable with cultural differences, no matter where are we, it will be fine. So we have a place in Italy, in Belgium, or in Thailand at the moment.
Yeah, I'm also hungry as well, but we have a lot of food for thought. Food for thoughts a lot, and I really appreciate this. It's also not an episode. An end of this call doesn't mean like it stops there. I feel like I have so many things to reflect on, because it's also very different when you articulate your thoughts and feelings. Because when you articulate your thoughts, you have these things also happening. Like,
it becomes
oh
real.
yeah, that did happen. Yeah, and it's another conversation in your head that will happen, and I will have a lot. So, guys, thank you
Bon
for inviting
appetito.
me, and this has been.
Thanks, Dallah.
Thank you, Dorian. Have a good dinner, and let's just message anytime.
Yes.
Go Bash.
Nice to see you again.
Yay, I'm very happy to have had this talk with you. So, Inya, take care.
Bye-bye.